Take a giant leap into unmissable action in Northern Ireland. Let the Mourne Mountains sweep you off your feet. Go wild in the waters of the Causeway Coastal Route. Explore Enniskillen by hydrobike. Enjoy the buzz and bustle of Belfast Common Market. Cycle the spectacular Sperrins before snuggling down in Derry's Ebrington Hotel. It's always one giant adventure after another in Northern Ireland, and it's only up the road. Book your short break now at discovernorthernireland.com.
Duans, everything you need under one roof, and still appreciate the chance to price.
Go to Duans Kiltulla Flooring and Door Showroom and see their full range of insulation, laminate flooring, chain-to and sea-deck doors, along with interior and exterior crown paints. Don't forget they have animal feeds too. Facebook us or visit duans.ie.
Duans, everything you need under one roof, and still appreciate the chance to price.
Duans Hardware Kiltulla. Just 3 minutes off exit 16 on the M6.
At the Central Statistics Office, we're trusted to gather all sorts of information. So, we count lakes, stakes and haulage intakes. We count wages, ages and all of life's stages. We count loans, phones, still living at home. We count euros and cents and housing and rents. We count Mars, electric cars and the price of a jar. Because this data informs important decisions on everything from economic activity to housing policy to what to call a new baby. And we can't do it without you. CSO, count on us. We count on you.
Woohoo! It's the Hoolie in the Sun, September 21st to the 28th. Be on it, don't miss it. Call Cassidy Travel Dublin.
Also, see Declan and guests in concert, Friday 27th of March, Town Hall Theatre, Galway.
Welcome back to Galway Talks here on Galway Bay FM. Dave McCarthy of McCarthy and Associates in Woodkey joins us for our regular slot on financial advice. And Dave, if you don't mind this week, I'm going to start with a question from one of our listeners related to one of our earlier interviews on the programme this morning. We had Kevin McPartland, the CEO of Fuels for Ireland, on, and this question about the increase in oil prices, etc. One of our listeners asking, is it a practice that they're increasing oil prices to dissuade panic buying, and shouldn't that be made illegal? I mean, what's your thoughts on what we're seeing in terms of oil prices?
If it was that simple, it'd be great, but unfortunately, no, there's no moral objective in this. It's purely commercial. So, unfortunately, the answer to that question, listeners' question, is no. There's one thing he doesn't talk about, and I've heard him being interviewed a few times, is to explain to us the wholesale situation with oil in this country. So first of all of the petrol stations are owned by oil companies. We see that. There's no independent retailers out there anymore in terms of the supply of oil. So whether you're Circle K or whoever, you're buying in all your oil, you're storing it, and then you're supplying your stations. Now, that's the point that I would like him to explain in detail. The storage, the wholesale stores of petrol and home heating oil in Ireland. There are tens of millions of litres of fuel stored here at the moment at any given point in time. There has to be, because that's how they supply their retailers. So that oil has been bought in. We don't know when, but would have been bought in maybe 6 months ago, 3 months ago, or bought forward and hedged by these companies as well. So that's what he doesn't talk about, is that they are buying forward and they're storing oil. And then all of a sudden, in inverted commas, there's a big jump in international price of oil, and the oil that's being stored wherever it is belonging to a major oil company, they increase the price within 24 hours. Now, you don't need to be a genius to figure out what's going on there. That's not what he's talking about. So yes, maybe he's right about with the retailers and that's what we experience. But it's on the other side. It's the suppliers and the oil companies and the big boys who have supplies in this country. And there would be, at any given point in time, huge stores of oil from the oil companies. Another point I want to make is, and again, figure this one out. Early in March, after the, I'd say maybe it was a week or 10 days ago, after the big jump in prices, the average increase of home heating oil, the increase was 8 times the average in the EU in Ireland, right? It went up by 27% here, and it was 8 times less as an average across the EU. I think the only country that came, it's not even close to us, the highest behind us was Austria, and I think it was 8%. So,
and I never saw as many oil trucks on the road.
Yeah, again, I go back to his point. Why has it gone up 8 times? This is the increase now. And okay, you can say there's a certain amount of taxes and that, but that won't answer this question, right? As opposed to other countries, so across the EU. So look, I'm sorry, he works for the industry. He was a good speaker. I understand some of the arguments he's making, but he has not answered the fundamental question for the public, in my view, which is they buy forward.
Let's go to happier scenarios, because there's some new tax relief available now on pharmacy healthcare services. Can we save ourselves a little bit here?
We can. As you probably know, which is, I think, it's great that they've loosened up the way we, I suppose, get our health care, in the sense that you can go to pharmacies now and you can have a consultation and you can be supplied with certain products that you need, which traditionally you would have had to go to a GP for. So what the government are saying now is that hold on to those receipts. You can claim tax relief on them in the same way that you would have if you went to a GP. So if the pharmacist charges you a fee for the advice and then charge you for the product, you can claim tax relief on that. So, you know, there's a limited, I think, number of services they can provide, but hopefully that'll be expanded as time goes on and take the pressure off the GPs. So any service you get from a pharmacist, make sure you keep the receipts and claim them.
Well, to borrow a well-known phrase, every little helps when it comes to the tax man.
Absolutely. Get everything you can.
Let's go abroad to our European neighbours now, because Sweden is showing the way by urging people to keep some cash handy in case of disruptions. We all know how so important this was when Storm Éowyn hit that time. Some shops, they lost all power, they lost their tills, they lost their ATM card connections. It was cash is king.
You were absolutely right in the example you used as well. You brought it to down to a level that we all experienced, which is obviously here in Ireland. I've covered this a few times before in the last 6 months, and it's got to do with the fact that the EU, first of all, have said that cash is here to stay, and that's a legal requirement. Sweden, which is a highly technologically advanced country,
well organised,
they're now saying you should have a certain amount of cash in case some of these things happen. And I think the most important thing about this is that people have choice. You can choose whether you want to use cash or not. And in fact, there's been a couple of developments recently across Europe which suggests that the EU is now looking at this very closely, and they could possibly come in with regulations to force retailers to have to accept cash across the EU. And I think that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, you know, they're worried that what would happen if a big supermarket chain decides to stop taking cash? What's going to happen? Like everything else in this country, they all follow suit. Mm-hmm. It's like the petrol prices, they all follow suit. They all, you know, there's a herd mentality. And the consumer is the person that suffers. So yeah, Sweden have shown a great example here by encouraging people to have some cash.
And I think what they've done as well, if I remember this correctly, they've kind of stated a certain amount per head within the household, so that you're not just keeping, you know, that €100 in case I might possibly need it. You need to think about this in terms of that something could go on for a few days if there was an emergency. You're
absolutely right. What they've done is they've come up with a calculation of how much you need for your monthly groceries, your monthly, you know, basics, and that you should always keep that amount handy in case there's an outage of some sort. And we've all seen different technology problems in terms of the way the card systems work. So we don't, even without a storm, we have problems there that can happen.
Let's look at what's happening with one of our banks. AIB is moving from quarterly fees in a current account to a monthly fee of €6, saying most customers will save money, will they?
So, well, that's what they're saying. They're moving from charging a quarterly fee and transaction fees on their current accounts to a flat fee of €6 every month. Now, they're saying that it will save most customers money, that it's going to make it easier for people to understand their charges and all of that. I suppose, like everything else, the devil is in the detail as to whether you are or not saving money. So I suppose the only way you can look at that is, you know, when that comes in, and if you're an AIB customer, you know, look at your account and see in the next 3 months, have I saved by comparison to the previous 3 months? So it is more, I suppose, it's more. There's more clarity in this structure than there was when they charge a fee plus transaction fees. But saving your money, I take them at their word. I don't know.
Dave, are people inclined to vote with their feet when it comes to bank account charges? Like, because, you know, some people may have a scenario in their mind, oh, it's too much hassle to be moving all of the payments, etc. But is it really that hard if you need to?
It is, unfortunately. In my opinion, it is. And it should be much easier. And the Banking Federation says they put in place systems to make it easier to change. I know many people who had to move from Ulster Bank when they closed down, so they had no choice. And I know people who had personal accounts, I know people who had business accounts, and they just found it exhausting, the whole process of changing.
Yeah, especially the direct debits and that kind of thing.
It was just, even things like ID, and it was just, they found it exhausting, right? So I can understand why, and there isn't actually a very high percentage of people who do shop at their feet with bank accounts, right? But I can understand why they don't. But when you have to put up with that kind of thing, now this is specifically if you have a current account or a kind of what I would call a money transmission account that you use for all your things like direct debits and standing orders. So well, they should vote with their feet, but they don't.
Okay, a happier question from one of our listeners, and I wish I was this listener. I'm looking to buy a holiday home either here or abroad. What are the issues I need to consider?
I think the biggest thing anybody needs to consider if they're buying a holiday home or a second home is why they're buying it. Now, they've used the word holiday, but that would suggest it's a lifestyle decision. And you get people who buy property both here and abroad, but particularly abroad. They like Malaga, they like wherever else, and they want to buy an apartment to that. And I suppose back in the Celtic Tiger era, it was going on wholesale, but there are still, reasonable numbers of people who have the money to be able to do that. But the one thing I find, and they need to consider, is the reason why you're buying it. Why am I saying that? If you're saying you want to buy the property as an investment and rent it, well, then you need to look at all sorts of different parameters by comparison to the person who wants it purely as a lifestyle purchase, right? So you need to look at, where am I buying? Is it good value? Is there good demand on rent? You need to do your research like you should anywhere, but especially when it's abroad and you're not familiar with it. But then if you're looking to buy as a pure holiday home, just for all your own use, you might rent it occasionally, but that's not your objective. Your objective is, I want to have the little apartment out in Fingerroll or wherever it is and go out and use it. Well, then you're not buying for an investment. You're hoping that you would keep the value and that you buy well. So that's the one thing I would just say to somebody. And then there are other issues, like obviously different countries have issues in relation to taxation and property, whether it's purchase tax or whether it's ongoing tax. And then they're very much an important area is the legals. Some countries have very kind of loose laws when it comes to transfer of property. You want to make sure that whatever you're buying, the title is okay in it.
A couple of questions here now, and I'm not sure if they are ones that you can answer. Well, this one you certainly can. What do I need to do to be exempt from dirt tax?
Well, if you're over 65 and you're under the normal threshold that you're outside of being liable for tax, you are exempt from dirt. Just because you're over 65 doesn't mean you're exempt. You have to, your income limit it determines that as well. And it's something that you would just need to complete documentation for the bank for. But if you're beyond the normal exemption limit for income tax, well, then you do pay dirt.
Now, you might have an idea on this, so I'll throw it at you anyway, but this listener wants to know, how much on average is it for a couple to make a will? I suppose to put all their financial affairs in order.
I'll give it very bluntly, it's dirt cheap.
Avoid the dirt and then it's dirt cheap.
Pun from the last question. It's dirt cheap in inverted commas. No, seriously, it is.
I suppose the question you have to ask is, what will it cost you if you don't make one?
Oh, look, Sally-Ann, I could keep you here all morning with the stories of people and the consequences of not making wills sometimes. So, I mean, the country is littered with examples of what I'm talking about. We won't go into that now, but the Law Society encouraged solicitors to draft wills for people because it's one of the areas that they're anxious that people look after in terms of their structure. It's very cheap, a couple of €100. I mean, put it this way, the cost is certainly not going to put you off.
Okay, Dave McCarthy, great advice as always. Dave McCarthy there from McCarthy and Associates in Woodkey in Galway City. We are going to the news at 11, and for the final hour of our programme today, we're celebrating the life and music of Dolores Kane.